What's up, everybody, and welcome, awesome people. This is Matthew Mason. I'm the proud host of the Hot Conversations with School Leaders podcast. A reminder that hot means we are being honest, open, and transparent about the work of a school leader and the lives that we live. Our guest today is an international speaker going around the world and the country sharing his passion for student and staff engagement and school culture. He is the author of two books, the best-selling Next Level Teaching and his newest work, School Engagement, 45 Activities to Ignite Student Learning. He is a loving husband, a devoted father, and also is in the trenches still teaching as a middle school social studies teacher. We have with us the amazing Jonathan Alsheimer.
What's up, brother? Always love being in the crowd of educators. I always like to say, man, if you're in the game of education, man, there's nothing better than talking about it. So let's talk about it today. Let's go.
Yeah, man, no, I appreciate you. So one of my first questions is, can you give the audience just a little bit about you and how you even got into education?
Yeah, man. So I've been born and bred in the game, man. My mom was a teacher, elementary school teacher. My dad was a teacher, 34 years retired. My wife's she's an elementary school teacher, but she was a classroom elementary school teacher, and then now she's a transition to an ESOL teacher. My daughters both go to school plus me, so it's like I can't get away from it. And
Yeah.
15 years, high school, middle school teacher. Now I'm shifting over to teacher coaching and instructional coaching. In addition to that, wrote two books, speak. I've done work with the UFC, clothing brands, celebrities, started a nonprofit with my middle school classroom. And over the course of 3 years, we created a national nonprofit. We were featured on NBC News, the Saturday Morning Show, USA Channel 9, and to Give Back Project to help kids in hospitals. And, it's just any way I can give back to the game of education, I try to do that to the best of my ability.
So you do that. Like you're running down all of those things. I know I brought you in twice. And again, thank you for doing those two. And like every time you come, you have tons of energy and just listening to everything you do. Sometimes I feel like I get tired with the little bit that I do. I'm not doing anywhere near as much as you do. So how do you keep up with all of that?
Man, it's tough. Well, first of all, I gotta say this, man. I like to introduce myself, and you've heard me twice, man. I like to introduce myself. I'm like an energy drink wrapped in a suit coat. Now I look as cool as you today. I don't have my suit coat on, but I gotta say, by the way, audience that's listening, if you're watching, I'm in a hotel room. By the way, this is not my home. This is a hotel room out in Minnesota. I'll be speaking tomorrow in a school in Wisconsin. For me, honestly, like that's kind of why I transitioned to the instructional coach, teacher coach, because the speaking became so much a part of my life that the classroom, being a classroom teacher simultaneously, as well as making my family's number one at all times. So with that being said, it's a lot. Now let me go back a little bit, because it's really tough to answer that question and be probably to give the audience like, well, it's not as hard as it looks. It is tough. And I want to say like it's because I'm passionate about the work that I do and what we do as educators. And I got to say this, that my love and my passion not only is from my own heart, but also I always like to speak, even on this podcast, I will speak on the topic of education or leadership or teaching or whatever, but I will always speak from the perspective of a dad. So years ago, one thing I left off is I actually turned down 2 superintendent positions. Like I have my leadership degree to actually be a principal. Yes, sir. I turned down 2 superintendent positions at 2 different states. As a matter of fact, I got to share this if it's okay. Man, it was crazy. One of my toughest travel experiences. I left my classroom, had to fly to a connection to LaGuardia in New York City, and then travel to the Midwest. And I think it was in Indiana is where it was. And I had to sleep on a table in LaGuardia because there was a delay, missed my connection, bought a new flight, literally begged a hotel attendee to let me take a shower. And I showed 15 minutes before the event, and the director of teaching and learning was like, "Hey, man, just want to let you know the superintendent here was supposed to have some meeting with directors, was not planning on being here. Let me just tell you what, my job's on the line, bro. Don't mess this up." So I was like, I got it. Like, I hear this a lot. Okay. Like, he was a little nervous because I was showing up. I was on the phone with him. Like, he knew I was late. Anyway, when the time came, the superintendent introduced himself. He's like, "Listen, man, like I'm here to see you. I want to see what you're going to bring for our staff. I've not heard of you, but whatever." And by the time it was done, he goes, "Hey, I would like to meet you in my office." And I was like, "Man, I must have said something wrong. Like I must have made this guy mad." And he's like, He sat me down, stern as can be, man, at first. And he's like, listen, let me tell you what, there's an assistant superintendent position open for next year. I want to give that to you if you're willing to move out Midwest. And in 2 years, I'm retiring and you're going to get that job. And I was like, nah, man, I'm gonna stay with what I do and what I know. With that being said, when I got the degree, when I first wrote Next Level Teaching, I was getting my master's, my second master's in educational leadership. Already had a master's in literacy. I was being a dad, teaching, putting the kids to bed with my wife, doing all that stuff. And then about 8 o'clock, I started my grad work. And then by like 10 o'clock, I'd get that done, or 11, started my book, went to bed at 1, woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, did it all over again. With that being said, in addition to all these other things, man, it's not easy work, but I look at it as a father, like I want to give teachers tools to help them. I want to give teachers tools to make engagement easier. I want to give leaders tools to lead their schools in a way that's going to make a difference for the people that they serve and the community that they serve ultimately. And that's what drives me. So, tired some days, not other days, but at the end of the day, I'm always passionate, always with a love for education.
So veering off maybe a little bit, something that I've also noticed about you, and you talk about it, I think, in your book a little bit too, like at least seems, you look like you're in great shape. So like, you just went through your whole timeline of your day. How do you also put that in there? Because again, I see a lot of educational leaders and some of us are in shape, man. Like we are not doing well in that regard. How do you put that in there?
I'll tell you what, man, years ago, I used to be a nighttime workout hawk, like I was always a nighttime guy. And so was my wife. And then I was like, I can't do this nighttime thing anymore. We had a little daughter. And then, and then we were like, all right, time to wake up at 4 a.m. And at first I was like, this is never going to happen. And then I just started waking up every day at 4 a.m. Then my wife started waking up at 4 a.m. doing her workouts. And then she'd be waking me up, making sure I'm doing my workouts. And I just feel like it's a stress. Actually, when we get off right now, I'm going to go to the gym down here in the hotel. I'm going to get my workout in, because for me, it's a stress reliever. Like, I feel like I always say this, man, like one of the things I did that I never really talk about that much is years ago, I connected after a very horrible thing occurred in our school with a student. It struck me, and over the course of the summer, I connected with the idea that probably there's a lot that has to do with this, but I always noticed that this child wore the same outfit every day, same hoodie every day. And eventually that new looking hoodie looks real nasty real quick. And so I connected with MTV reality show guy from like Rob Dyrdek is a ridiculousness. His cousin Drama, who owns Young and Reckless, we connected together and we started doing like, he gave us donations for stuff, for clothing. Cause I always go off of this, like if you look good and you feel good, you do good. And
Y'all Sanders.
Yeah, man, for the students, we started a student leadership gig around, you do something good, you help a teacher, you get some clothes. And whether you need them or you don't, it doesn't matter. Like you're doing something to earn it. Like we're trying to teach kids, you're going to earn everything in this life. This world is not going to give you anything. But for me, the same thing. Like if I feel good, if I look good, I feel good. Yeah. And then if I feel good, I do better. So that to me, I got to make it a priority. Also, man, I can't be having my wife thinking some other guy's looking better than me. That hurts.
No,
I know it happens, but it hurts my ego, man.
I feel the same way. At no cost will I have any other gentleman looking better than me. So I'm going to make sure I look good for my wife.
And if they do, I'm going to trip them down the stairs is what I'm going to
do. Yep. So now looking, you said you are now coaching teachers. What do you feel like are the top needs of teachers, especially this time? Because now that we've gone through COVID and now we've kind of gone from that remote and we're back in here, there are still the same needs, but I also feel like there are some other needs that teachers have as they're getting into the profession.
Yeah. So honestly, for me, it really goes to this word engagement, man. That's actually why I wrote that second book. And I always joke with my audience. I ever say like, I hate writing. Like I think a lot of times people write books to make money, or they write books and they pump them. For me personally, like I hate writing books. I really don't enjoy it. I hate the process. And my publishers will tell you I'm so annoying because I hate it so much. And thankfully my editors are great. They make me sound cool, but I do it because I want to give teachers tools, and I only speak on things that I know. And I've gone through the trenches, as you said, and I continue to do that. And when I wrote the book, I was in my classroom. I remember like, the topic I had to teach, the what you have to do, the what versus the how, right? The what, I knew what I had to teach. I just didn't know how I wanted to teach it. And for me, the biggest problem for educators is that instructional piece. Number one, instructional design. Like, how do you set up your instruction? What things do you think about before you put in put it like before you set up your unit plan? Do you think about like, okay, how do I connect this to student interest? How can I use maybe some AI or tech tools, not as like to hold you up, not as a crutch, but as a tool to help you make it more engaging? How do I bring in, how do I make literacy more fun? Maybe I gamify something. But the problem is with engagement, kind of my answer is two-part here, is that we don't have time for a lot of instruction. It's really difficult to sit down for 45 minutes with our team uninterrupted, a lot of time and plan stuff, So a lot of times grab the stuff we did last year, the worksheet, whatever, that was quick and easy to print off at Teachers Pay Teachers. And we use that. The problem is, as I go around to schools across the country and do observations and teacher coaching and help and work with leadership teams. So if you're a leadership team, I'll address this as we go through these questions, but one of the biggest problems is how we use our instructional coaches. And I'll probably get to that at some point today. But when I'm looking around and I'm watching teachers, and it's not to the teacher's fault. It wasn't to my fault when I didn't know what to do. I needed some help, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing, because ultimately this word engagement truly is the foundation of the work. If you think about, like, a lot of times people say, well, and I used to be like this, relationships are the foundation of education. There's a really good, I kind of agree with that to an extent still, but I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to say, no, the word engagement is the true foundation, because here's why. You show me a teacher with phenomenal relationships, but their classroom is not engaging, those relationships stop at the door every time.
Yeah.
You give me a teacher that struggles with relationships, but they're the math teacher that makes math engaging. Those relationships are going to form authentically. You show me that. And also, here's the other thing. What's the ripple effect of engagement? The ripple effect is now you're able to build relationships better. There's a ripple effect as it relates to the energy in the room. So if you have a group of kids that are engaged, that energy transcends from one activity to the next, and you can keep it in your room and use it to your advantage. Or that energy that you just used in that lesson is now going to leave. If you're not like a second grade teacher and you have your kids all day, that energy goes into the hallway, and now it changes the behavior of the students. Now they're not snacking kids or cussing out somebody. Think about this too. Kid goes from a math class to science class, and they had an engaging math teacher. Now they go to science and they're ready to rock and roll, right? They're not bored. That science teacher is actually going to have better behavior because the kids were so engaged before. Or it could be the complete opposite. And also think about from year to year to year. Man, when I was in 4th grade, I hated history. So I'm going to hate it this year. And they're going to come in and you're going to have to deal with that. Or come in and be like, man, my history teacher, Mr. Miller, where my girls go to school, Brock Road, the 5th grade history teacher, Mr. Miller, he is a legend. And everybody knows him in our town, man. And so when the kids, they come into 5th grade, they are so excited about school because they've heard, I'm creating this word. I've been saying it for years, but I'm putting it on the podcast. What are they saying about you in the streets? The hallways are the streets of our schools. What are they saying about you in the cafeteria? That's the streets, man. If you can get the kids talking in the streets about your classroom, or, man, I heard, if you say talking in the streets, man, my cousin had you, and I know this class is awesome, man. You've already won the battle. And there's so many, the ripple effect is so profound in the word engagement. So for me, the biggest thing is, how can we instructionally help our teachers? And a lot of it does not fall solely on the shoulders of our leadership teams, but our leadership teams can truly, truly make a difference in one small tweak. And that's how we utilize our instructional coaches.
So I'm glad you went there, because I was about to ask, as a leader, like sometimes for me, like I felt like my classes were really engaging. I felt like I was kind of like you, being a social studies teacher myself, I felt like I really had to open this thing up, right? Because if I just go by notes or I just go by the textbook, it's boring. But I can really open it up and show you that the world around you is history. It's all the time. So you brought up instructional coaches. How can I, as a leader, sometimes it feels hard to teach something you feel like you kind of do naturally, right? Like you feel like you're naturally engaging and pulling kids in. How do I do that as a leader?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different answers to that question. And so I'm going to kind of attack it at various angles, and hopefully I answer it really, really well for you. Okay. Step one, if I'm sitting down, which I do, I sit down with principals and assistant principals and instructional coaches, and we have this conversation. My first thing is this: we need to reconfigure how we utilize our instructional coaches. So often in schools, our instructional coaches this is typically what you would hear from an instructional coach. They would say something like, "How can I support you?" or "How can I help you?" As an instructional coach, as a teacher, if you say, "How can I support you?" I'm going to say, "Man, I got a laundry list of things I got to get done. I don't even want to have this conversation. So I'm going to say, I'm good. And then you're going to leave me alone. And then I can at least get something done today." Or I very rarely will ever ask for help because sometimes I don't even know. I don't even know how to answer your question. So my suggestion always is start with the leaders, the instructional coaches. Instructional coaches, they have all day. Their job is not to say, "How can I support you?" Their job is to already know how to support them, how to support the teachers. So I've gone into classrooms over the course of a week, and maybe the teachers are going to send me what they're going to teach the next week. And I'm going to go around and I'm going to see things that I know need to be addressed. For example, I was in one school. I ended up being in a series of 3 schools, but I was in one school in particular, and I saw an escape room being used 4 times across the whole school. Now, before I go in any further, the entire day, I walked into almost every single classroom the entire day, only saw kids up and moving only once. Now, granted, I didn't stay for an hour. I'm trying to get a whole picture view, but in that whole picture view, if I see kids moving around the room one time, not to say like there were times I went to a classroom and kids were sitting and it wasn't fully engaged. That's not what I'm saying. There was tons of that, but there was also tons of kids just sitting and there was compliance learning. With that being said, when I saw the escape rooms, I saw 4 of them. Only one time kids were moving. Now, with that being said, it's probably because teachers don't know how to get the kids up and moving with an escape room or any activity that you could see, right? So as the instructional coach, my job is to go into these classrooms and say, okay, maybe we have a PLC. I'm going to meet with the PLC group, or maybe at a staff meeting, I'm going to address it full group. All right, here's a strategy that you can use in your school. It's an escape room. This is how it can be done. All right, I'm going to show you a couple different variations. Here's a math, here's a science. It doesn't have to be a content thing. It really just has to be how you set it up. Now, this is a way, one of the biggest problems I'm seeing, and I'm going to address it point blank. One of the biggest problems I'm seeing is when people use these types of strategies, they don't get the kids moving around. So here's an idea. Put your questions around the room. For me, I had them doing it. I would put it under a table. So they have to climb under the table to find the clue. And then that clue leads them to my teacher wall of books, my teacher library. And it said, find the book that starts with the letter U and then pull that book back and you're going to find the next clue with the question. So I see kids going over to my teacher library, like pulling books away. And then there's a piece of paper behind the books hidden that you could never see that says a question that they then have to go into their resources to figure out the answer, like find evidence for yada, yada, yada. So now they're moving around my room. I have, when they walk in, all right, here's another thing. What can you put decorations up? Ooh, I can have like some paper hanging from the ceiling and it looks like the building's abandoned, or it looks like maybe zombies are attacking and like we're trying to escape the zombies. Or maybe I have noises. Maybe there's like a storm. So I go to YouTube and type in storm noises or trench warfare noises or zombie apocalypse noises, whatever. And then you have that playing and we knock the lights out. And then maybe you bring it to the staff. What else could I do? And they're like, well, you could try this. You could try this. So you could bring it to the staff. But I already know because I'm going around and I'm seeing it. Here's another thing you could try. Here's an AI strategy or a this or a that. But the instructional coach is sharing it. And then here's the
other. Looks like, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'm going to say, so first, the instructional coach is seeing things and addressing them either PLC or full group. The leadership, the principal sets the standard. Listen, this is what I want to see. I don't want to see kids sitting down. I don't want to see just worksheets. I want to see worksheets being used for a purpose or sitting down being used for a purpose. But I want you to be doing this. And then in addition to that, as the principal, I'm going to go around and I'm going to see when teachers are doing something good. Instructional coach, your job is the same thing. When we see this, I want you to take pictures, maybe a video, and then we're going to ask that teacher to present at the next staff meeting. Maybe we grab 3 teachers. Hey, I saw these 3 cool activities this month. They're going to tell you what those were. We gave them a name. So maybe it's like human bingo, or maybe it's like, whatever. I don't know. And it could be something as simple as, look at how this teacher had their kids doing sketch notes using Canva and AI image generation. Can you spend 3 minutes and talk us through this? And then the other part of it is this: as leaders, this is often what leaders don't do. You have to set the standard and live by that standard. My expectation is every single person in the room, I want you to write down your next 3 units. Write them down right now. Okay, unit, whatever that is. So maybe it's, matter if you're a science teacher, or, the Great Depression. I'm going to write down my 3 units. These 3 teachers are going to stand up and they're going to share their knowledge. Your job is to pick at least one. And how could you use it in one of these 3 units? And I want you to start taking notes. And if you're not going to use it exactly how they did it, how could you, 1, make it better, or 2, change it and make something completely different and actually help us by coming up with something even better? So you're sharing what you know the problem already. You're giving teachers those tangible tools. And then here's the other thing. It's great PD from down the hall. Some of the best PD is already in our building, but the problem is we're not utilizing it. And it's not that it's not there, but we're getting comfortable with, well, we're going to do what we always do. And the 9th grade science team's only going to share with their team, and the 3rd grade language arts team's only going to share with their team. No. If I'm a 5th grade teacher, I want to steal from that teacher and that teacher and that teacher, but I'm never going to know unless the leadership team sets the standard, and they do this like religiously almost every month. We got other things we're going to do, but for the first 10 minutes, I'm going to have 3 teachers come up, boom, 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 boom. We got pictures to show you. And then we're going to get to the data we got to talk about or whatever. And your job is this. And as I'm walking around and I'm hearing the teachers talk, I want to see you guys writing things down, taking pictures, whatever. And we will post them on a shared drive for you so you can go back and look at them. And if you want to talk to the teachers, we'll put the teacher's name there so you can send them an email or go speak to them personally.
Oh, no. So one of the things you brought up that I really appreciate, and my mind was going so many different places, was one, as the leader. I know you were talking about the instructional coach, but even as a leader, one of the things that I've tried to do a lot more is before I'm telling somebody like how to improve or do anything, I got to be in the classroom, right? Ability is very important. So even with the instructional coach, just being in, walking around, seeing things will give you an opportunity to help somebody way before they even ask. A lot of times when I've gone to rooms and brought things to people's attention, like the staff want that. Like they want somebody to share with them, like, hey, this is what I saw, and give them a solution to the problem. Not just say, this is something that needs to be fixed, but here's something that you can do. I wanted to know, could you define for everybody, because you use the word compliant, I think compliant learning. So what does that mean? Some people may not know what that means.
Yeah, so compliance learning, I like to say the difference between what I want and what I don't want is compliance learning versus active participation and engagement. So compliance learning is whether it's sit down or whatever you're doing, I'm doing this, I'm not engaged, I'm doing this because you're asking me. And half the time, maybe it's like I'm sitting down and I'm going to be reading something, but I'm going to be thinking about what I'm going to be doing with my girlfriend at the mall, or what, I'm going to go hang out and game with my boys after school, or I got the basketball game this week. Like, I'm there. It's almost like I'm a robot sitting in your room and I'm just going through the motions, but there's no real learning. It's just, I'm going to get through this until the next worksheet. It's like a conveyor belt, an assembly line of busy work, as opposed to active, engaged participation where the kids are invested in their learning. And with that being said, they will do the worksheet or the boring thing or the maybe something they don't typically like the reading, but they will do it because of the little things that we do. They will be engaged in that reading. I'm going to all right, here's what we're going to do. And here's a quick example just to answer your question. Rather than just sit down and read something and then like, all right, let's talk about it as a class and everybody's just staring at you drooling. All right, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. You're going to highlight what you think is important. I want you to write down 3 things in the margin that you, 1, think are the top 3 things to know. And then I want you to write down 2 maybes and put a question mark next to them. Maybe this is important, but I want to have it here just in case. And then as soon as you're done, we're going to spend 5 minutes and you're going to get with your little group and you're going to go around the group and everybody's going to share one thing that they thought was important. What were your maybes? You got 5 minutes. Okay, now we're going to play a game. We're going to play grudge ball, or we're going to play whatever. And I'm going to be asking you questions. You're going to have to dive back into your reading to find the answer, to find the evidence, and then give that to me. And we're going to have some fun. And I'm going to be testing and you handle more fun. But again, as people are hearing me say all that, they're like, ooh, I want to see what that looks like. Well, number 1, bring me into your school to do a workshop. I would be happy to show you. But number 2, as a leader or as an instructional coach, that's where our job comes into play. And all you have to do, you don't even have to come up with the idea. Just find the teacher who's doing it and let them shine on the stage in front of everybody. You just have to make sure you capture the moment. and then you share it for everybody else to use.
Gotcha. So just in the interest of time too, because I know you got in, I know you want to get some rest, but you always move. I got two more questions, then I got some lightning round questions. I'm gonna ask you that real quick. I just wanted to get your thoughts on those. So
Do my best.
doing the engagement, how do you keep something from being, I think I've heard somebody call like a Grecian urn. So it's like you create this activity and it's like, hey, and the where it comes from is you're going to color the urn, right? You're in a history class, you're going to color this Grecian urn, you're going to put pictures around it, you're going to do all these different things, you're going to present it to the class, but it becomes more of the picture and creating the picture than me actually sharing as a student what I've learned. Like, how do you make sure something's engaging, and as a teacher I can see what the student has learned?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, I really love doing like simple assessment tools. And I'm going to share my favorite, which is honestly, I mean, this is like the most simple way ever. And I like I like to almost like it's not tricking the kids, but it is kind of. So for example, I'll share an activity example. So I'm speaking at Get Your Teach On, which is in June. And my philosophy is if you're a teacher and you're good at what you do, you don't reinvent the wheel. The best teachers steal ideas. If you're not stealing, you're not doing the job right. You're doing it wrong. So
Great.
I was working in California and I was sharing strategies and I was doing my workshop at an elementary school in California. And this teacher said that she stole an idea from another teacher who went to Get Your Teach On, which is funny because I'll be there in June. And the strategy that she talked about was one of the strategies that they kind of invented at Get Your Teach On. Now, my rule with anything is I'm going to steal it and then I'm going to make it workable for me in my own way. It was called like boom, clap, snatch, I think is what they call it at Get Your Teach On. I changed the boom, clap, grab because I'm a middle school teacher and I got to be careful of what the titles of things are. And so with that being said, boom, clap, grab was invented and all you take is a note card. Now I'm going to answer your question in just a second here. I'm going to take a note card and I'm going to fold it and then leave it on a desk so it's inverted. And I'm going to have a group of kids with a score sheet where they all write their names and then they just tally their points. And what seemingly looks like a pointless activity is going to be used at the end as a mild assessment tool. But ultimately, I want to get kids to remember the content. Now, how do you learn something? Well, you hear it, you read it, you write it, or you say it. And so in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play boom, clap, grab. And so I'm going to say boom, and they'll pat their legs. Boom, boom, clap, and they're clapping and they're patting their legs. And I say grab. The first kid to grab the note card gets a point. Now, personally, as a teacher, I don't really care what the points are. I don't really care at all. I might give them mints if they win, whatever. I don't care. I might just, a lot of times I'll give rewards out just because they're having fun and doing it effectively and learning. But as soon as he grabs that note card, cool, you got the point, whatever. But here comes my question. And before I even play boom, clap, grab with them, I'm like, all right, I'm going to ask your question now. So you have think time. Here's my question. I'll do we're history guys, right? So what was the event that during World War II that took America from isolated to directly involved in the war? All right, here's your think time. I'm going to give you 20 seconds if you want to dive into your resources, and then we're going to play boom, clap, grab. Get 20 seconds, 5, 4, 3. Okay, here we go. Boom, clap, and then grab. Kid grabs a note card. Got your note card. Everybody got the note card, has the point. Great. Now I'm gonna have you answer the question. I'm going to say it one more time. What was the event that got America from isolated to directly involved? Ready? When I say go, you're going to say your answer. Set, go. As soon as I say go, every kid in the group speaks their answer out loud. Pearl Harbor. And then they might say something else. But you're always going to have kids who might not know anything because they're not doing as much work as they should.
Right.
And by giving them think time, the kid with the processing delay and using the resources, I'm trying to reteach them to use their stuff. We don't take notes for nothing. Now, regardless, though, I tell the kids beforehand, listen, what's the difference between good cheating and bad cheating? And they're like, this is how they respond every time. Bad cheating is when I steal the answer off of her during the test. Correct. What's good cheating? When I steal the answer off of her before the test? Exactly. Or off of me or off of my board, but you steal the answer. So during this whole activity, I'm going to be asking you review questions. And if you have fun, I'll throw you some mints, whether you win or lose. And it doesn't matter if you don't know the answers. Your job is to remember what all the answers were by stealing them off of your friends. And then at the end of class, here's your answer to your question. We're going to do an info dump where you're going to sit down for 10 minutes. You're going to write down everything that you remember in as much detail as you remember before you leave and forget it. Because actually in that moment when they're writing it, they've already heard it. They've already been trying to say it. Now they're going to be writing it and they're going to retain that. And then I'm going to get that and I'm going to use that as a soft assessment tool to kind of gauge where they are. And then I'm going to use that as a way to like either reteach something or how I'm going to, for my next activities or whatever. But ultimately, that's also not only a way for me to kind of gain what they know, but it's also going to help them remember this stuff a little bit more. And they're again, moving from compliance learning to active because it's a game. They're having fun. They forgot they're even learning. And then they leave and they go, can we do that again tomorrow? No, but we'll do something else. And it'll probably be fun if you can handle it.
Gotcha. That's awesome. So last question, and then we get into the lightning round. What are you most proud of? Like you talked at the beginning about your work with students. You talked about your work with your nonprofit. What are you most proud of as an educator?
That's a really tough question to answer, man. I got to say this, man. I think my thing I'm most proud of is the fact that people see value in the work that I do in my vision for what education can be. And I think that as I go and I speak and I do workshops, I think what I'm most proud of is I just heard this, so I'm going to give you two. A lady the other day, literally this week, said, I've heard a lot of people speak. I've been involved in education for like, I think she said 17 years. So I've heard a lot of people. She's like, this is the first time I've ever listened to somebody and didn't pull out my phone and send text messages. She's like, that's the best compliment I can give you. She's like, I was hooked. And so I'm glad because that means that we're reigniting some passion in people. And that is something I take pride in. But in addition to that, I'm also very proud of giving teachers tools. And when they leave my workshops, they're like, you know what? Like, I've been to a lot of workshops, but this is the first time I'm walking away with like more than I even know what to do with. And that's a good thing. I don't even know where to, like, I've got 5 or 6 things, but I probably could have more. And a lady in Ohio, just in December, said, I've been in education for 27 years. And she said, this is the fastest day in education. And she's like, I have so much to take back to my classroom. And the reason why I say I'm proud of that is not because I'm like, I'm a humble guy. It's because as a dad, I'm envisioning all the kids in that classroom that are just like my daughters or just like your sons or just like whatever. If you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. Right. And if you're not, imagine it. But somebody's kid is sitting in the front row, back row, side row. And hopefully that my session impacted that teacher enough. And I've seen it. I've gotten videos of from principals and superintendents like, look at what I saw this week. And I got teachers standing on chairs like I do in my workshop and kids are going around doing stuff. And I'm like, I know those kids are going to go home and say school is fire today. And I got to have a hand in that. And that means something to me.
That's what's up. No, you bring the energy every time I see you. And I definitely appreciate that. And I love sending people videos and everything of what you do.
Appreciate it.
So this is the lightning round.
Do it.
First question. Give us your top 5 favorite music artists and why.
Man, that's tough. I'm gonna give you the best. So I'm a more genre guy. I'm gonna say this. If I'm gonna go guy, if I'm gonna go artist, I'm gonna go Brandon Lake because I love me some worship music. Yes. But when I say worship music, I don't know if you know Brandon Lake, but he came from my church. He's the #1 Christian artist out there. Yeah, he was our guy on stage, and now he's the #1 Christian singer. He sings in front of like 20,000. Wow. It's nuts.
I've heard the name.
Yeah, he's amazing. And then I got to say anything that I can be on the beach with my surfboard. So Ziggy Marley, Bob Marley, if I could be jamming out, right? There you go. My little girl's song is 3 Little Birds, man. So there's that. And then anything country, I'm down with. But I listen to all of it. I listen to rap. I listen to, I got it all. I got Tupac on my workout mix. I'm going to listen to some of that. But those are my tops right there.
So this next question, I always hear people's response to this one because it says a lot about them and what they are passionate about. So next question, if you could sit down with 5 dinner guests, dead or alive, so dead or alive, doesn't matter, who would you choose?
Well, man, I got to say, I'm going to say right now, like I'm a man of faith. So I got to say Jesus, #1. That's a really, like, everybody's like, what? They're rolling eyes at me, but man, but I'm going to say this. We'll say George Washington. We'll say Tim Tebow. I would 100% Martin Luther King. I mean, I'm a history guy. So
yeah,
I'm going right down the history stuff. And then I got to say Peyton Manning because I love football. So
okay, gotcha. Are you a Colts fan or were you a Colts fan?
Not at all. I'm a Giants fan. I'm ashamed to say. Yeah.
Well, you're the only team other than the Eagles that have to bow down to. I'm a Patriots fan, so
all right.
I got to bow down to you guys. Y'all beat us twice. So the last question: if you could have anybody else on this podcast, who would you get? But it's got to be somebody you can help us get.
Yeah, I got you, man. I would say Jimmy Costas, man, he's a mentor for me, good friend of mine, just someone who I got to say is super genuine in the work that he does. And when I got to say, like the type of person that, give you the shirt off his back, but he's knowledgeable, he's done the work, and he really loves people and leaders and teachers and just helping. So he's my next go-to, and without a doubt, I'll connect. So.
Awesome. I appreciate that, man. Well, look, I appreciate you, everybody who is watching this podcast. If you get an opportunity, please check Jonathan out. Go to his website. If you're able to get him to come speak, or if you know he's coming to speak near you, please go to see him. If you haven't read any of his books, remember Next Level Teaching and School of Engagement are available, so please take those. They are absolutely amazing books. So I appreciate you all. Love you. Keep leading. We'll talk to you later.